Next presentation, Professor Toby Bruce. Welcome.
Thank you, Sir Chairman, and thank you, Committee.
Sir Chairman, I've never been called that before. Thank you, anyway.
Invited me to give evidence on food security, the environment and crop protection. So, great pleasure to be here. My name is Toby Bruce, and my role is Professor of Insect Chemical Ecology at Keele University. I would like to draw your attention to the alarming loss of tools in the toolkit available to farmers for protecting their crops against pests, weeds and diseases. These cause billions of dollars of losses to global harvests. Pests jeopardise food security and the viability of agricultural enterprises. Availability of tools to combat pests is declining as they evolve resistance. This is analogous to the antimicrobial resistance to medicines in the medical sphere, but it's further complicated by pressure groups and protesters campaigning against pesticides. There is growing public concern about side effects of pesticides, for example on bees, leading to banning of certain projects. But still, crops are highly valuable and vulnerable to pest attack. Despite widespread pesticide use, pests destroy about 30% of global harvests. So, we have a choice between food security and environmental protection. And this is an unworkable choice because we need both. There are consequences of banning pesticides before alternatives have been made available. It is not realistic to assume we can simply go back to nature and ban pesticides overnight. Even organic farmers use natural products, pesticides, to protect their crops. And even wild plants produce toxic molecules for their defence. So, if pesticides could be abandoned so easily, then farmers would have actually done it long ago, because it doesn't make business sense to spend money on treatments which are not necessary. The NFU commissioned Anderson's report found that proposed restrictions to pesticides use in the UK could lead to a 36% drop in overall UK farming profits. We already import 50% of our food supply, and if we take our eye off the ball with crop protection, then we will become even more import dependent. While it may be possible to import cheap food from abroad for the foreseeable future, there are questionable ethics about shifting the environmental footprint of our food production abroad. There are environmental consequences. Although often considered a quaint rural occupation, farming uses more land and water than any other human activity. So if yields go down, there will be an environmental cost as farming spreads sideways to produce the same amount of food, but using more resources. The pace at which old tools are being lost is faster than the pace at which new ones are being provided. There is market failure. New solutions are not forthcoming. It's not just a matter of funding research, although this is a critical factor. There's also a need for having a regulatory system which is fit for purpose, because it's currently stifling innovation. Regulation is needed, but it should not be so precautionary that it blocks innovation. It is of paramount importance to increase research investment into crop protection. Back in 2009, the Royal Society published a landmark report, Reaping the Benefits. Its primary recommendation was to make global food security a priority, with investment of 50 to 100 million per year of new government money in addition to existing research spending. The BBSRC is the main and strongest supporter of frontier bioscience research and has been maintaining its research investment, although not increasing it as much as the Royal Society would have liked. However, the same cannot be said for DEFRA. The DEFRA research budget has actually fallen from 250 million in 2005 to 100 million in 2014. a drop of 60% in 9 years, instead of the increase that was recommended. This has had a severe negative effect, especially for crossing the valley of death between
I'm afraid time is up.
and near market sites.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, what do you think could be achieved by an inquiry into this?
It'll make a big difference to food security and the environment.
In what way?
Well, it's this choice that we have at the moment, which is a very unhelpful choice between having to choose food security or the environment. We need to find a way forward in which we can safeguard our crops without the environmental impact.
Through the use of smarter regulation, in effect, is that what you're
partly through smarter regulation to bring more interventions onto the market, because there's a critical shortage. Even the regulators are saying there's a critical shortage of new treatments, but also that it's not just regulation. I think there's underinvestment in this area. It's just not being taken seriously enough. I think there's just a lot of complacency because we think that agricultural problems they were solved back in the Green Revolution, and nothing more needs to be done about that. But we're in the 21st century. We've got a much different situation where we've got to. It's that perfect storm that Sir John Bennington talked about, where you've got to produce more food to meet growing demand. In the face of climate change in a resource finite world, and so it's a major challenge that we face this century. How can we feed the world without wrecking the environment in the process?
No, understood. Thank you, Carol.
Are we wrong? And this is maybe a question that would take far longer than we have available to answer. But are we wrong to be concerned about pollinators or the decline in pollinators? Because you seem to be saying that we really need to be updating our pest control, whereas the environmental push is concerned about the impact on bees, for example.
I'm not saying that we're wrong to be concerned about pollinators. That's a very important thing too. We need to find a way of making sure that our crop protection measures are compatible with safeguarding the pollinators, and so it's something which requires more investment. So the neonicotinoids, they were banned, so you can't have neonicotinoids anymore. But because there's nothing available, then this led to a massive increase in use of pyrethroids, and so these are also broad spectrum pesticides, and so there's even the environmental pressure groups and pesticide companies, they're in agreement that we need to have some
one
new
second, because I think
solutions.
there's a supplementary, and then I need to bring Bill in as well.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see, and this is probably part of the bigger problem. I mean, if we develop more effective pest control, we're actually affecting the pollinators that are going to increase crop yield. So,
well, it's all about targeting. So when you say more effective pest control, then it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, that it's going to be very broad spectrum when we're going to be killing more pollinators as well. What we need to find is a nice way of dealing with it, so that we can kill the insects which are causing a problem while safeguarding and conserving the beneficial insects. So that's what we need. And we
don't have that. No.
We don't really have that yet, no. And in fact, they're actually market drivers for because it's so expensive to get a new product on the market. Then, if you have a very target-specific pesticide, it's actually not so financially rewarding for pesticide companies to develop that, because they want to have something where you can kill a lot of big pests and market it for a lot of different insects. But then it's not going to have that target specificity that we really require.
Can I bring in Bill?
Yeah, I'm sure you. Thanks for that excellent presentation. I'm sure you'd agree food security and the environment are intertwined, inextricably linked, and yet from time to time they conflict with one another. In relation to dealing with issues you raise, what element of urgency is there attached to that, and who in government should be listening? Should it be this group, or do you see anybody else in government that should be hearing your concerns?
I think it's primarily this group because it's research and innovation, and that's what we need. But and it's absolutely urgent. This should have been dealt with, 10 years ago when the Royal Society put forward that reaping the benefits report, because there's a lag period between having your initial concept to actual field delivery. That's not unusual. It's the same in the pharmaceutical sector, and so if we've already got huge problems. So there's a farmer I know local to me who's switched to growing maize on his farm because he can't grow wheat anymore because there's such problems with the herbicide-resistant blackgrass.
Just bring your remarks to conclusion.
So in 10 years' time, if the evolution of resistance keeps increasing and the regulation and banning of products gets more and more severe, then there'll be even fewer tools in the toolkit, and the situation is going to be even more difficult.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.